Hello YouTube, this is Tired Metalhead Weatherman. As you can see here, we have finally gotten around to this after many family related issues and active severe weather days. Even though we're about 18 days late, I would say, or actually about 16, about 2 weeks, I'd say, either way. We're finally getting around to this hurricane outlook video. I've been meaning to do this for a while, but like I said, life has happened, severe weather has happened, and a lot of things seem to have just gotten in the way. So, this video will be pre recorded, of course. This will probably be up tomorrow morning or by noon tomorrow, no later than. But we're gonna kind of talk about hurricane season and how we look at some of the parameters that we look at to try to get the numbers that we do, whether it's us in the weather community or professional meteorologists like on the website that I'm looking at here. Here's a little tidbit for you, and this is not a promotion because no one even knows who the heck I am right now. This is the Colorado State University website. This school actually specializes in weather and climate research, especially tropical weather. We've been using these guys a lot over the years, and they've been excellent. More often than not, they've been the most accurate when it comes to their hurricane outlooks over the last decade or so. So we're going to be looking at them today and looking at their forecast numbers. So we're not going to go over all of these like the hurricane days and name storm days, etc. We're going to look at the things that are most important: the name storms, the hurricanes, major hurricanes, and we'll look at this little term right here that I'm a little bit new to, I'm not going to lie. So let's compare the forecast for this year compared to average numbers. So we have name storms. Colorado State's calling for 19 this year, and the average is 14 normally. This average has been brought on over the last 30 years. So it's a pretty reliable number, but we are definitely looking like we're going to have an above average season. We have 19 name storms, 9 of which are expected to reach hurricane strength. Just going to briefly touch on this. A hurricane is a tropical system that has gone above the 74 mile per hour mark in wind speeds. So we're expecting 9 of these hurricanes this year, and the average is 7. And then 4 of those hurricanes are expected to reach major hurricane status. Major hurricane is a hurricane that has broken the wind speed of 111 miles an hour. We expect 4 this year. The average is 3. Not a huge contrast. Now this term here, I'm a little bit new to it, but I'm kind of likening it to CAPE, or a more in-depth version of CAPE, or even the significant tornado potential. When all else fails, I've always been a severe weather geek more than anything, so this is what I'm trying to compare it to have some point of reference. But this is accumulated cyclone energy. This is basically a measure of a named storm's potential for wind and storm surge destruction, as defined as the sum of the square of a named storm's maximum wind speed in 10 knots squared for each 6-hour period of its existence. Pretty advanced. I'm going to have to learn a lot more about that. I want to make sure that I'm reading this equation properly. Probably haven't. And if so, I do apologize. Before hurricane season actually starts, which will be June 1st, I will have this term down. I will know everything about it, or just about everything about it. So, Colorado State pretty much concludes this report as saying They anticipate an above normal season. They're saying, like I saw a report a while back saying that they were expecting a 140% normal season. So it's about 40% above average. So, I mean, the proof's pretty much in the pudding with this chart here. But hey, well, I do want to mention one thing real quick, that this is a forecast. This doesn't guarantee that this is exactly what's going to happen. This could uptick or downtick, honestly. But I honestly, from what I've been seeing from other forecast models, I don't see any reason as to why this wouldn't be accurate. We'll just have to wait and see. So we're gonna move along here. Before I get into this, I'm gonna briefly touch on a few things that a few different tools that a lot of meteorologists will look at to try to give themselves an idea of what the ocean water is doing, what the upper level winds are doing, because these are very key components to hurricane development. So one thing that I'm going to talk about is the ENSO. The ENSO is extremely important because this will determine whether or not we are going through a El Nino or La Nina. Some of you might have heard this term in science class in elementary school or middle school even. But this is extremely important for hurricane development because because basically this largely talks about the ocean water in the Pacific. El Nino is the warming of ocean temperatures in the Pacific, and La Nina is the inverse. It is the cooling of ocean temperatures in the Pacific. El Nino usually results in more wind shear, which is actually what we would want in a situation if we aren't wanting hurricanes. Because hurricanes in some sense are like the inverse of tornadoes. Tornadoes, they need wind shear. Tornadoes need that wind shear to spin up. Whereas hurricanes, wind shear actually tears them apart. You actually want very stable winds. And with El Nino, actually you have a lot more active upper level wind pattern, and this usually results in less storms. La Nina is the opposite. La Nina usually leads to a much calmer wind pattern and cooler ocean waters around the Pacific. This does not always affect however, these cooler ocean waters will not always affect the eastern basin of the Atlantic or western Atlantic. So right now, based off of the report that we were looking at from Colorado State, we're expecting a weak La Nina around this area. So basically this means the winds during the early part of the season will be a little bit more favorable for a tropical development. So we can also take a look at how, and this map here actually takes a look at what the temperature trend with the ocean water is. So it's pretty self-explanatory here, to be honest. Anything that's showing a yellow, orange tint here, that's ocean water that's on a heating trend. Anything in the blue is a cooling trend. I mean, diagram's right here, so it's pretty self-explanatory. But you can already even see now in April that the water around the western Atlantic basin and in the Gulf of Mexico is on a warming trend. So that is already a telltale sign that these will be areas that we will need to watch come hurricane season, or maybe even a little bit before it. I've also been noticing personally over the last few years that some of these storms are kind of breaking the rules here, not and forming ahead of that June 1st start time, as we've been calling it. So there may be some changes coming with that. So now that we've seen that, we're gonna take another look here at another analog here, and this is actually a tropical cyclone frequency. This is where this map kind of highlights where we have seen the most tropical development over the last 25 to 30 odd years or more. I'm not doing my math right because I'm half asleep right now, to be honest with you guys. I'm sorry, but I just said to myself, you know what? I got the energy, the enthusiasm to do it. So I'm gonna try to jump on that. Excuse me. So now, anywhere in the red here tends to be more active. So basically, pretty much around this region here, and around the region, this Gulf region here, that's where we tend to have the most activity. Anywhere that's in the white is about average. So basically, our tropical hot zones tend to be right off the Cape Verde part of Africa. It's a very popular area as far as tropical development. Right around the eastern part, just east of the Antilles, we have another region for tropical development, and of course, we have the old South American route. It's a little harder for storms to form around here. There's usually a lot of wind shear in this area, so they tend to die out fast. But if they get through here, these storms can really become something nasty here, where they work their way into the Gulf, and then basically the entire Gulf Coast is at risk. And usually these storms tend to get really strong around there. We also have right around the Yucatan here, around the Yucatan and the I'm drawing a blank on what this area is actually called. There is an area for it, but there is an area. We have a name for this area, but I can't remember it right now for the life of me. But in this area here, towards the southern part of the Gulf and the Caribbean Sea, it's another very very active area. And of course, it's the Gulf of Mexico itself, and then just off the East Coast tends to be a developmental hotbed. So these are going to be the main areas that you'll be looking for any sort of tropical development. So I'm going to scroll back here. And we're going to take a look at all the names for the season. So this is A through Z, or in this case A to W. I guess they couldn't come up with any other names for the remaining letters in the alphabet. So I'll just name them all off real quick and go from there. But we start out with Alex, then we go to Bonnie, Colin, Danielle, Earl, Fiona, Gadsden, Hermine, Ian, Julia, Carl, Lisa, Martin, Nicole, Owen, Paula, Richard, Sherry, Tobias, Virginie, I think Virginie. Wow, that's an interesting name. And then last but not least, we have Walter. So another thing to note here, these are 21 named storms. And the thing is, we've had plenty of seasons where we have gone above this amount. In previous years, we would actually go to the Greek alphabet, but I think in 2020, we even had some Greek names that ended up being retired, so we can't use those anymore. So they will have a supplemental list from here on out. So if we happen to go above 21 storms, we will have to use a supplemental list. Here's hoping that doesn't happen. Here's hoping that most of these storms will not be very impactful. But there's been a trend where we've had storms forming a lot more off the coast. These could make for weaker storms, but I don't know. It's hard to say this far out. But this is also this also has a look to where we will have an early active season again, an active season and an early season again, because we already, like I showed in that one diagram with the ocean water, it's already heating up in the Gulf. The ideal temperature for any sort of tropical development is about 80 degrees Fahrenheit. Once you get above that, you're almost talking about bath water, and if you have no wind shear, things tend to pick up very quickly. So this is going to be a very interesting next couple of weeks. In fact, this trend of earlier development is even making the National Hurricane Center, the NHC, to consider moving the season start date to May 15th. So we'll have to watch this. So like I said, we're going to have to watch this really closely. And here's another diagram here, which is showing the increased heating of the Caribbean region, the Atlantic coast, the Gulf. We're already heating up in April. Well, this actually was taken back in March, and this is only heated up since then. So we need to be careful here. But this is all I got for you guys. I'm not going to try to make this video too much longer. I'm not going to keep stumbling over myself here. But that's the hurricane outlook video I have for you guys. I'll probably touch on this again as we get closer towards June 1st, since it's still technically the official start. But this is my hurricane video. This was my hurricane outlook video for 2022. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you in the next video. You guys have a good one.